Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and today's guest is actually courtesy of I was on her show. She was generous enough to host me. We had a great conversation about addiction. One of the things we talked about was really how individualized care, respecting and acknowledging people's uniqueness, and how everyone's approach to addiction recovery should be individualized. A lot of those broader programs are great for dealing with a majority of issues, but sometimes you need to go deeper and more personal. And we spent a lot of time talking about that, and we're going to cover that again today. The one size fits all approach is not true. One size fits most is more accurate. And so Ms. Jasmine Bootle is here to talk to us about she runs Everyone is Addicted, which is a program as well as a podcast that goes over addiction recovery. And we're going to get into her story of addiction and recovery as well. So, Ms. Bootle, great to have you here. And could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
So hi, I'm Jasmine Bootle. So I do have a podcast called Everyone's Addicted. I have a television show also called Everyone's Addicted, and I have I have a program where my website is Everyone's Addicted, and I do support groups, and I have I'm trying to get my resources like Mr. Whiskey's, but I'm not there yet. I want it to look as good as his. So I'm not
Thank
at
you.
that point yet. Cause yeah, his is great. But yeah, so what I try to attempt to do is, like he said, try to help people find individualized care for their true like sobriety, like freedom and sobriety, because I find that it isn't one size fits all, and a lot of people don't always like the 12-step programs and detox or rehab. We're not really given more options than that, and there is a lot of different options that are maybe don't sound the most conventional, but they are clinically proven to work. So that's why I try to bring more like things forward to people, because I want to help people. That's just kind of my goal. Like, so for instance, if you came to me, I would ask you questions about your personality, and then I would look through my resources and find something more tailored to you personally. And like, I have my own story, like he said, so I guess I can get into that if you would like me to as well.
For sure, yeah. I'd love to explore kind of the root causes of your addiction, what led you into that, and then most importantly, the turning point where you discovered recovery or recovery discovered you and why you pursued that.
So my biggest issues are that I am agoraphobic. I have CPT or CPTSD, sorry, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I have aphasia, which is skin picking, not the aphasia. It's spelled differently, but it sounds the same. Not the aphasia where you lose your hair, the or your
Mm,
skin changes. I think it is actually, and it's I pick at my skin. It has to ties in with anxiety. I also
right.
have generalized anxiety. So these all stem from the way I was raised by my mother, and I was bullied all through school. So the agoraphobia comes from that,
Mm,
which led me to drink because I was afraid to leave my house because I was afraid somebody was going to hurt me. I lived in a small town.
mm,
So the alcohol gave me the gumption, I guess you could say, or not even gumption, just the strength to leave the house, the strength to just do things because I was really afraid of people. Like I was
right.
very alone a lot, so I was very afraid of people. So, especially like attacking me or anything. So I didn't really like to go out of my house, so I would drink, and so that was my parents separated, and my mom took everything, which made my dad drink. So my dad and I would drink together. This is where the alcoholism starts, right? Is about 19 years old, which is the drinking age in Canada, because of the bullying, and just my mother also, like, I got beat up once and she told me I deserved it because I'm mouthy. So I mean,
Mm,
she just, like, if I wasn't perfect, basically I was just chastised very, very hardly. I was always chastised hardly, and so it created anxieties about every little thing that I did and said. I would overthink it. So another reason for the alcohol takes that away as well.
Right.
So once I found out, like I partied in high school, but I didn't party that much because I was afraid of these people showing up and doing things to me because they would. But I would still wanted to be a regular teenager. So yeah, I smoked pot. Yeah, I maybe had a couple drinks. Yeah, I did a little bit of coke, a little bit of ecstasy, but it was just more a recreational thing, right? Like I would never carried it over or like did it unless I was at a party. But when my mom left, and on top, my dad becoming an alcoholic for a little while, I was also an alcoholic due to my mental health issues. The booze took that away, and the booze took my dad's depression away. So we would drink together,
Mm.
which was not good. I did
Right.
a lot of really, really stupid things. Like I would literally go to my aunt's house to do my laundry and wear big pants and tape liquor bottles to my legs so I could walk out of her house and steal her booze. Like it was
Wow. Yeah.
ridiculously out of control. And then I hit an 18 wheeler going about 90 miles an hour and survived because I was in a Chrysler Fifth Ave, which is actually made of metal and is massive front end. So
Wow.
I was fine. I actually walked away from that, thank God. But that didn't stop my drinking because my dad paid for my lawyer because I was a little brat, I guess you could say, and we would get a 2-4 after we went to court. Like it was just still not, my dad was still enabling me at this point. But then
Right.
he ended up getting congestive heart failure. So he got sober because of that. And so when I would drink, he would get very angry about it. So I also started dating somebody that was in the military, and they did not like my drinking at all. So it was either that or goodbye, right? So that's when I went to AA for the first time. I was 24 years old, and I was not successful because I did what they call 13th stepping, and I left the person that I was with that was from the military, even though I was engaged to him and been to him for a long time. I left him for somebody in the program, and I'd only go to the program just to see him. And so I wasn't taking in what I should have been taking in or doing the things I should have been doing when you're going to a program to be sober. I didn't drink because obviously this person would not be with me, just like the last person, right? But then things with him and I ended, and I went back to drinking for a few years. And like that was just also just stupid things out of control, really putting myself in dangerous situations because I would drink at home and then go out by myself and just hang out with people. I eat like one time I met bikers, and if I found their cocaine, otherwise I swear they would have done something to me because they were called red rum, and I kept going red rum, and being very rude and insulting towards their club. And if I didn't, they lost their cocaine and I found it, so they didn't care I was being an asshole. But that's just what I mean by being stupid and going out and putting yourself in really bad situations. And I also would go out with people that were wealthy and they would treat me really poorly. And that was negative too. Then I got pregnant and had my first child. And my dad, right after we found out he had cancer. So this is where I stopped drinking, was because the last bit of my dad had cancer all through his body. He also ended up getting septic shock. So I wanted to spend as much time with him as possible and remember it, and also not anger him, make him proud of me. That's why I don't drink, because I want my dad to be proud of me because he didn't like it, right? So he did and eventually passed in 2018. And since then, I don't drink because I want my father to be proud of me. And so that's my pivotal change with my alcoholism. But my family screwed, like completely disowned me, didn't let me speak at my dad's funeral. They did some things with the will where I ended up my dad passed away a week later, so he was not mentally sound. And my aunt had him sign away $122,000, which he had already told his lawyer he wanted to give to me and my daughter to fix up our house because he didn't want us to move from the house. But the pension paperwork didn't come in until he was incontinent and not mentally there. Like, incontinent means he needed to wear diapers. So he was not healthy at all. And so my aunt had that happen. So I lost the money and she completely cut me out of the family. They won't speak to me whatsoever. So I had to sell my childhood home, which I knew my dad didn't want me to do. And my mom was very crazy about the whole situation, even though she wasn't with my dad for 10 years. But she's a hoarder, so she was crazy about all the stuff, which made it really hard to say goodbye to something so important to me. And so I ended up taking a Percocet, and that took all of that crazy stress, like I said, and pain away, like losing my father, having like I was also my daughter's father is a drug addict with fentanyl and he shoots up and I had to leave him because of child services and he's still an addict 8 years later, but that's another part of it. So I basically had that stress of that. I had I had to sell my childhood home. I had a child to take care of. I had my aunt screw me over and lose my whole family. So the Percocet took all the stress away, and I was still worried about what was going to happen with my daughter because of what had happened through her father. So yeah, it took all the stress away. So for the inheritance that I had went right out the window after 2 years because I spent it all on Percocets. And
Mm.
my spouse also took Percocets, not nearly as much as me, but he did take them as well. And he ended up having a heart attack. And so that's what got me sober. I'd also lost so much weight. I was like 70 pounds from the drugs. I just wouldn't eat. And I was so small. And I thought I was going to die from getting sick, like even just a cold, because I was nothing. So I drink the insurers. And so basically, what finally got me sober, I've been sober for 5 years now, was a methadone clinic because that's where I got a mental health assessment. That's where I was able to figure out what my root causes, what I explained were. And that's how I was able to heal myself was through figuring out myself. And that's what I would suggest to anybody is if you're struggling, get a mental health assessment done, and then you'll be able to understand what's wrong and how to fix it and where the root really comes from. So that's just, I guess, a bit of my story. I didn't get into the really bad details, but yeah.
Yeah, we get the message, and I think there's a couple of things I want to touch upon. So you mentioned agoraphobia, and I just want to define that for anyone not listening. That's intense anxiety and fear around being in a place or a situation where you can escape. For some people, they can't leave the house at all. For some of them, it's based on how many doors are in the room or what kind of people are present. I know you kind of mentioned those fears, and that's something that a lot of people have, and I think it's going to get more present and prominent as social media kind of closes us in toward our phones unless people get out of the house. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons for it, and something so important. You talked about you and your father would drink together, and then he stopped, and I think that was an important piece because all of us have an enabler in our life for the most part when it comes to addiction, not intentionally. A lot of times it's family members trying to keep us functioning or trying to stop us from getting angry or trying to keep us physically healthy. And so a lot of us deal with enablement. And I think a key piece is removing that from your life, whether you're a third party looking at an addict or you are the addict yourself, looking at who's enabling you. And sometimes it's not that obvious to see, but it is something to reflect upon. And I chuckled to myself because my dad is an addict and my neighbor is also an addict. He's been sober for 45 years and he and my father and I were having a conversation and my neighbor was pushing for my dad to continue to go to AA and do the 12 steps. And my dad said, "You don't understand. There's a 13th step. Fall in love with someone, and then you run off and do drugs and alcohol together." And I said, "Dad, you're BSing. There's no 13th step." And then you said it. You did. Now, in his case, it was terrible because he got with the woman at AA, and they started doing drugs and alcohol together, and they relapsed together. Sometimes you might find the love of your life who helps you keep sober, but most of the time I say don't go to AA looking to date someone. I said you can find someone outside of your group who also can relate to what you've been through. But it's just, I had a chuckle to myself when you said the 13th step because my dad just
Um,
educated me on that like 2 days ago. And so small world, but it's definitely
well,
can be a dangerous trap. And I
you're
think,
you're the thing about it is you're not even looking for somebody, but it's because of the conversations that you're having are so you
yeah,
feel like you relate to that person and you know that
yeah,
person. And it's just because they're intense conversations. Other programs have the men separate from the women, which I
mm,
think is better because it eliminates that 13th step, which does usually lead to relapse. And I have seen a couple of them work out, but for the most part, usually either one or both relapse because of how it goes and
yeah,
because of the nature of we're addicts, right? So we're working on our character defects, and so our character defects tend to come out at each other as we're trying to heal ourselves, and it's just a mess.
yeah,
Oh, gives
oh
me
yeah.
chills.
And I recommend, I don't want to say don't date while you're recovering, but I think when you first get into recovery, it's important to minimize any stressors in your life, any potential stressors. And I think until you feel firm enough in your discipline and in your self-control and where you are in your recovery, then you can start dating. But I think minimizing anything that could go wrong is so important. And so you mentioned the inheritance stuff is something I think a lot of us can relate to. I've very rarely see inheritances at funerals go well. I see a lot of every funeral
That's
I've been
when
a
the
part of.
vultures come out. When somebody
Hmm.
dies, that's when you see the true colors of the
Yes.
people in your family.
Yep.
Really
Every
do.
funeral I've been a part of, it was like a split up. That there was fighting over stuff, and
Mhm.
I feel like it's so simple. The person passing away says, "Here is my will, XYZ. Do this." And people want to argue, well, this and that. No, the person told you exactly what they wanted. Just respect that
Mhm.
and follow it. But there's people are so greedy, and
Well,
it sickens me.
my aunt disliked my mother. So she decided because my mother's child, she was going to dislike me as well. So that's why she did that pension thing to me, right?
Yeah.
And she made it go to nobody yet because my dad didn't have the paperwork, he told his lawyer that that's what he wanted, but because he had not received the paperwork when he was of sound mind, he it's hearsay is what she said, and trying to go after my
Mm,
aunt who's going to say he was of sound mind and was there when he signed the paperwork, I'm going to lose. So
yeah.
it was just a kick in the teeth because I knew my dad didn't want me to lose the house. So but you really do, like you said, you just see the claws come out and you see the true colors of people, especially when it comes to things.
Yeah. And as a man of God, I'm so like I don't worry about materialism. And one of the things that is just like I am still so sickened by it. When my grandmother was dying in a hospital bed in her home, so she was bedridden, she had broken her hip and she was fighting cancer. My aunts went through her belongings and were picking stuff out ahead of time or taking it while she was still alive, dying in another room. I mean, I feel like you can't get more disrespectful than that. It wasn't like, hey, grandma, which would be their mom. Hey, mom, like, I really like this thing you have. Have you allotted it in the will or stuff? Which even then it's like,
Like
oh,
my
you got to be
grandpa
polite
gave
about it.
My I said I like these plates that my grandma had, and my grandpa the next time I seen him gave them to me. That is totally different than
Right.
me just
Just
taking them.
stealing it. Writing her off saying, "Well, she's dying in another room. She doesn't need these anymore." Well, that also, if I found that out, I'm not me personally, but if I was someone who was in that situation, I might give up hope. It's like my own children don't believe I'm going to
Mhm.
make it through this. What's the point? So I think that is crushing to the person's mental health. I think it is a
Oh
reflection of
yeah.
their character. It's disrespectful. And I know my grandma wanted me to have her car and they went and stole the title to it and changed the name and signed it over to themselves before I got it. So stuff like that. it's just such a shame, and especially in your case, you had to overcome addiction, and you're doing what you can to try and make up for the years you've lost and the time you've lost, and raise a daughter, and they screw you over all for what? And the idea of just throwing it to the state, well, I don't want XYZ person to have it, so let's just give it to the state. I mean, come on, really? You want to give the money
You
back
know,
to
and
the
he
state or the
my
country or whatever it is?
my dad's like you. He like works really. He worked really hard because he enjoyed what he did, obviously, right? So he had amassed a decent pension. Obviously, it was $122,000, and I know that he didn't work all those years just for it to stay at the company. He would not in any
Yeah,
like state, but I know that he died like a week later, so he clearly was not sound mind or healthy, but you
yeah,
can't fight it. And that I hate that I lost my childhood home. Every time I drive past it, I cry because like my
yeah,
dad did not. He wanted that to be our house forever, and that he wanted that money so that I could fix it up, and that's
mm,
what it was for. But I lost that inheritance, and then I did get a little bit of money. Like I sold my home, but I bought a new house, so it's not like I had a lot. I didn't just
yeah.
have the money from the house. I did buy a new house and a car and stuff like and furnished my house. So the inheritance that I did have left over, it was about, and I'm not gonna lie, it was about $60,000 that I spent on Percocets, which is horrible, and I hate myself for it. But it
Yeah.
keeps me sober because all I want to do is make my dad proud, and it's something that I know doesn't make him proud. And like I said, like I am also religious, and I know that that's not the way God wants. That I just, it's something that like you have to try to learn how to forgive yourself for, but it's really hard to do.
And it's so petty and spiteful to me. Well, if I can't have it, no one can. I mean, that's kind of what your aunt was saying, and that's just it irks me.
Oh,
And it
she's my other aunt passed away when I was a child, and she did the same thing to my two cousins and cut them out of the family. Didn't let them speak the funeral. Same thing. And I mean, I haven't seen them in person since I was like 12 because they were cut out of the family as well. I have them on Facebook, but it's like that separation has been so long now. You know what I mean? It was like, and also probably the resentments they feel because of what my aunt did. And my dad was very passive. So he had a hard time like confronting anybody about something. So
right.
even though it upset him, he didn't confront her about how she had gone about doing things with my other aunt's children. So she's just not the nicest person. That's all I'll say. And you know what? At the end of the day, there is a God, and he there is karma, and I know that her life isn't like grandiose, so
Yeah.
it's not like she won. It's not like she had the money. Because he what I he didn't sign it over to her because I don't think he was allowed to, but she still lives a modest life, so I'm not going to sit there and be envious and angry. I just think that she's not a good person. That's all.
Yeah, it's about the character, and I think one of my favorite Bible quotes is like, "We came into this world with nothing, and we're gonna leave with nothing." And a story I heard was an angel says to a guy like, "Hey, you're gonna die next week, and you can bring one thing to heaven, one suitcase of stuff worth to heaven. Pick what you want." And the guy sells everything he has and then converts the money into gold bricks. And he packs a suitcase full of gold bricks into to bring to heaven with him. And when he gets there, the angel says, "Let me check in your luggage." He goes, "Oh, that's weird." The guy goes, "Well, what is it? I'm very proud of that. That's XYZ amount of years of hard work, and I did this and that." And the angel goes, "I just think it's weird that you would bring paving bricks to heaven." The guy looks and the whole streets are just made out of gold. And I always love that story because it's like,
I never heard it. I love that story. Oh,
yeah,
that's
it's just people's characters, like you said, they really show when there's a death in the family. And if you die old and alone with plenty of stuff but no memories and no people,
sad
I
too.
think it's you have your priorities wrong. But getting back to obviously these actions led to you going back into addiction with Percocets, and then you got sober 5 years. Congratulations on that as well. And what I want to ask with that is there any temptation, any cravings, any difficult periods, or how is that going?
I've gone through since May, like the hardest part of my life, even harder than losing my dad. I won't get into it because it's way too long of a story, but
Yeah.
I've been through quite a bit. And I've stayed sober through it. I haven't wanted to use. I think that I've honestly, I just I don't want to feel the withdrawal. I don't want to go through the rat race. I don't want to
Mm,
harm my children. I think that I know because I said mental health assessment. I know what causes me to want to do these things. And I also know the repercussions of these things. So I'll outweigh it. I also, like I said, look at the reason of why. Like, do you know what I mean? Like envy is something that gets me a lot. So say I get envious of somebody and I'm like, oh, if I just was drink, then maybe I wouldn't feel like this, right?
mm,
Then I think about it and I'm like, I don't really know what happens behind closed doors. A and B, it's none of my business. And like you said, mere material things are just material things at the end of the day. And God will show me this too. Like, I don't know, I was upset the other day and I was crying. And I'm like, because of what my situation. And then I God showed me my blessings. My daughter made a little spotty for me because she knew I was upset. And I knew
aw,
that was God showing me my blessings. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? And like showing me like you might be crying over material possessions, which I was, and he showed me what I really had in life and what was really important. And like
amen.
that's something that keeps me sober is seeing the things that God shows you when you ask. And you lose that part of you when you use. You know what I mean? I almost feel like you lose your faith because you're not in the right state of mind and you can't even pick up on those little signs, like the fact that she did the spotting because mommy was sad. It just shows me the blessings of my child and being able to be with her and spend time with her is more important than some financial issue. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely got even with my dad when he had septic shock and they told me he was gonna die, but he came back. Like I've had God show me lots of things. It's just you've got to ask and you've got to pay attention to the signs. And I think that's a lot of what helps keep me sober too, is my faith. I think because having a higher power, even they will say in AA, is like the biggest thing. And even if your higher power is not religious, it's having that knowledge that something is out there trying to guide you. And through what I just said, I have seen it guide me. So I know that there's something out there that is protecting me to some degree. Do you know what I mean? And
For sure.
like as long as I stay away from what like as long as I stay away from the substances, God is going to be on my side and at least show me the way. He's not going to lead me down a road where I'm on the streets because, you know, I'm sober. So at least I'm able to think clearly.
I
It's
think it's
hard to
so
say.
important. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's so important to recognize like there's a reason they say to put on the armor of God because we are in spiritual warfare. And think about real warfare. Do you want to go out as a soldier intoxicated? Do you want to be out on the field high? You want to be peak mental performance and on guard. And some people would describe it as when you drink or do drugs, you open doorways for bad spiritual energy and demonic entities to enter your mind. I think it's so important. The Bible doesn't say not to drink. What it says is my favorite one from Proverbs is wine is a mocker and beer is a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is a fool. A fool in that context, going back from not the English but the original language, being someone of flawed moral character and susceptible to to those mistakes. So I think it's so important, right? It's that being led astray. And you mentioned the motivations behind why you drink, the root causes, the whys that can be very difficult for people because a lot of times in addiction we think, hey, we know why we're drinking. It's because of A, B, C. But I find that addicts are like, for lack of better words, to borrow Shrek's word of we're like onions. It's like there's multiple layers to it. And you
We can
gotta sometimes you
justify
want to address.
anything to ourselves. We can
Yeah,
justify absolutely anything to ourselves. That's another part of it.
100%. Yeah, my father is notorious for that. Well, it's your
That's my
birthday,
mom.
son, or it's Christmas, or it's Easter, or there was good news. Sometimes, or it's I'm Irish, I had to drink on St. Patrick's Day. There's those
Mm,
kinds of justifications. There's Andrew Michael Houghton, who was on my show as well as my father, the conversations with him. Oh, it's just this type of drink. It's not this type of drink. It's not hard liquor. It's just my
yeah, it's
dad's
just
famous
beer.
for it. It's just White Claw. He's like, it's just, oh, it's only this much percentage. You can play that percentage
And
game, but
alcoholics always know the percentage of what they're drinking. And they
mhm.
look at it every time when they buy it, they look at that
Yeah.
percentage.
But they never add it up. That's the part. You can say, oh, a White Claw is only 2% or 5%. You've had 10. Do the math, but they never do the math. They just focus on the drinks percentage by
Yeah.
itself. So I think that's so important to acknowledge that determining that root cause. Sometimes it takes more than yourself too. You mentioned getting mental health help. Sometimes it takes a lot of analyzing. Sometimes people can see stuff you can't see because you're in the midst of it. So it's very important. But besides the justification, sometimes it's just denial. You don't want to acknowledge how certain events affected you, or you don't want events to have affected you at all. So I think it's so important. And then I want to get into treatment. Obviously, that's something you cover on your show. You and I have even had some of the same guests. So along those lines, what has been the most curious or interesting thing that you have discovered while guesting as well as hosting your show? Maybe a particular type of treatment that just kind of blew you away, or you were like, wow, that's something that people I would have never heard of.
So I had somebody who had two near-death experiences, and when he came back, he actually woke up in the morgue the second time, and his parents were
Wow.
identifying his body. Yeah,
Whew.
so it was quite intense. But he said he was out of his body for quite a while, and obviously it was pronounced dead. But he had seen these things that had told him what he needs to do in the world. So what he does is he is a doctor now. He has gone to school for these things, but there's a method. The methods he uses are just something you would never think of, but they do work. It's called the Allenstein method, and it's using numbers. And so, say you have a fear. There's like a certain number. I can't remember what it is, but you say the number over and over, and it's supposed to help get rid of your fear.
Wow.
Same with like issues like that. You know what I mean? Your anxiety. There's a number that you say over and over again to help bring down your anxiety. It's almost like breath work, but with numbers. And he also
Wow.
works with brain frequencies themselves as well. If you know what I mean, like they try to get your brain frequencies back to where they initially were before you did the damage, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, what gambling addiction, whatever it is. Your brain is not wiring itself properly or has never been. Do you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
he uses frequencies to help rewire your brain, and then he uses numbers to help you with your issues of anxiety or things like that. But he also does recommend like root cause therapy and stuff like that. He does that kind of
Yeah, yeah.
therapy too. But on the side of that, he also introduces these numbers, and it just blew me away because I was going through a lot of things, like I said, and that fear number helped me so much. It just like helps you to calm down. And it's that's what the point is to help you calm down. It's repeating something over and over again that gets your mind out of it and put so it's like there's the fear number, but I don't even know if it necessarily has to be that specific number. I just think that it's just saying something to yourself over and over again, stop that makes you think it's stopping the thing from happening is what is the method, I guess. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, if
Yeah.
I say this over and over again, I won't be afraid anymore. If I say this over and over again, I won't have anxiety anymore. So I think it's just shifting your mentality,
Mm.
I say, on top of fixing the brain waves with like there's the machine that they put on, and they wire with your brain waves for about like a half hour to an hour. It's like a black machine you use it with your head and stuff. I forget what it's called. I wish I could remember exactly what the machine's called, but I
Yeah.
can't. Even when I did the description, I sat there and I spelt it wrong like 8 times. But it's called the Ellerstein method, and they also use the brain machine and therapy on top of it. But it's just the frequencies and the numbers really blew me away because the numbers, it's I don't think it's necessarily numbers, it's just the it's really easy to shift your mind. Breath
Right.
work, sometimes you're overthinking it while you're doing the breath work, right? So, like,
Mhm.
thinking that this is going to stop your fear, you're like, okay, two, 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 stop my fear. You know what I mean? It's just
Mhm.
something that it makes you feel better, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I
I'll
found
have
it
to
very
research that because that is very interesting. That's not something I covered before. It kind of sounds like it might be a placebo effect or priming the brain
that's what
to a
yeah,
degree. I think in terms of like not using numbers, I think a lot of people, especially faith-based people, have a specific prayer, Bible quote they'll say when they're feeling a certain way. For some people, it's a mantra quote
one.
they
I
got
have a
something.
prayer. I've always said Psalms 23 because when my dad was sick, they read him that because he was supposed to die and he made it. So because he made it, I always say Psalms 23 like over and over and over and over and over and over. And it would make me think my dad wasn't gonna die. So it's the same as the numbers, right? It's saying the prayer over and over again because I think it's keeping him
Yeah.
alive. It's just with your mind, I think.
And could you share at least the or your favorite quote from Psalms 23? Was it you would say the whole song?
Okay, so Psalms 23, I try to think if I can say the whole thing. I like, so I can't say it all together. I just
Yeah,
can't,
that's
I
fine.
can't, but I really like when it says that God sits you down with your enemies and he anoints you and you know what I mean? He anoints you with
Is
the
the one where he
cloth
says, "I make a table in the midst of my enemies." He
amidst my
yeah.
enemies. Yes, I
He
like
makes me lie
that
down in
part.
green pastures. Yeah, this is one of the
Yeah,
most
he let me
famous
lie.
ones.
Yeah, he lets me lie down in green pastures, and he's beside me as I walk through the darkest shadow of the valley. And there's two versions. You can say as I walk through the dark, like so as I walk through the dark valley, which means going through dark times, and instead of the valley of the shadow of death, if you there's two versions. If you use the
Yeah.
version that is just walking through the dark valley, or I can't remember exactly how it said, but that one I had literally have written down a piece of paper, like it's all torn apart. It's hilarious. But that part I like because it's like as you're walking through the hardest times in your life, you have God
Mhm.
with you. I also like that he anoints you when you're with your enemies and you make
Yeah.
things better.
And your
Because it
cup
reminds
overflows with
yeah, your
blessings.
cup
It overflows.
overflows with love. It's like it reminds me of just thinking about like I have had a lot of people that have not liked me. Do you know what I mean? But I have come to terms with that and I also made amends with those people. So when they say that, it reminds me of those amends and those things that have helped me heal through life when he says that he your cup overflows. And I also like the green pastures part, but that is pretty much all the prayer put in, just not said
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
how you
No, I
say
appreciate that.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I pretty much like the whole thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think it's important for me. It's at least the one I used to say the most was the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So that was one that I kept very close to me for a long time. And I have a lot of favorite quotes. It kind of depends on the situation, but
Mhm.
I think it's important. And if it's not a Bible quote, it could always just be something. I've got a buddy who says impossible equals possible, stuff like that, whatever it may be for you. Even like the little train who thought he could. I think I can. I think I can. For
Yeah,
anyone who's familiar
exactly.
with that story, that children's book. So, yeah. And then Ms. Bootle, what would you say? I'd love for you to promote. I know you and I were talking about you've got different groups going on, online Zooms that people can join. I'd love for you to just share a little bit about those.
Okay, so my website is www.everyoneisaddicted.com. I run three support groups through that. On Tuesdays, I have grief support, and it's from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Wednesdays, I have addiction support, which is from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I have a support group for loved ones or people who have lost somebody to addiction. And that is also from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They are not affiliated with the 12 step programs at all. It is talk therapy, and be around community and people who understand you. Because I find sometimes you go to a counselor, they've not been through what you've been through. So you feel like it's hard to break through with them. But in as a support groups, you're able to come and be around people who understand exactly how you feel so that you don't feel like you're putting a wall up because this person's not going to understand you. So that's basically you just hit click the support groups, they're all right there, and the links are all right there.
Awesome, man. Just as well to promote your podcast, Everyone is Addicted. Could you tell us a little bit about the show and what people can get from that?
So everyone's addicted. I interview people who have been addicts and found recovery. I interview people that are loved ones of addicts, giving them a voice and also showing there is I find a lot of programs and things like that fly under the radar. So having different people's perspectives, especially the loved ones, because there's not a lot that we know of out there for them. Having them come on and talk about how they've been able to get better, what has helped them, it really, really helps other people because they feel so alone when they're in that chaos of the addict and they're around the addict and they don't know where to turn for help. So
For sure.
I try really hard to find, like, talk to them and have them share what kind of supports they have, right? And they have lots of groups, lots of Facebook things. If you look for it, you can find it. So I like to interview people that have unique ways of sobriety or just ways that people have not heard of, different methods, like I said with the brain frequency machine, or like I said with the Ellenstein method, there's the Sinclair method, which is for alcoholism. There's there's so many. I
Laser
like
off.
that. Yeah, there's the laser one. There's also plant medicine. I have the guy who started Cali Sober on. He explains what that really is because I don't think a lot of people do know what that really is. It's not about smoking pot like everybody thinks. There's a lot more to it. So yeah, like those kinds of programs, and especially, like I said, with interviewing Quinn Lapierre, the creator of Cali Sober, and having him explain that it's not about just smoking weed, it's about harm reduction medication. It's about like using plant based things as harm reduction medication opposed to using pills. So it's a lot different than what you think, I guess you could say. And I like if I've interviewed people that are clinicians that run, like, if you've ever heard of the show Nine Perfect Strangers, they actually have retreats like that they own, and they talk about how they use the psilocybin with the ayahuasca and just different with like plant medicines that can help you as well, like in microdosing psilocybin, things like that, like ketamine. I've had people come in and talk about ketamine therapy. So there's a lot.
A lot.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think about it, I'm like, there's so much. And there's other people who maybe started their own methods that I'm just not thinking of the names of them right now. But yeah, there's a lot of different
for
things out
sure.
there. That's why I like to, if I'm helping you, I talk to you, I get your personality, and I try to find you a program that fits your personality and kind of your availability, basically kind of what's going to be comfortable for you. And I give you a few different types of resources so that you can look at them and see if something fits you better than maybe what the traditional methods you're told by a doctor are, just to help you so that you don't feel like uncomfortable and not really putting the effort into sobriety because you don't feel like it fits for you.
For sure. I love that. I try to do the same with my show, putting out as many resources as you can because as we said in the beginning, it's not a one size fits all. It's about that individualized care. And so I highly encourage people to check out your website where they can find those support groups, resources, your contact information to reach out to you, and then also the podcast episodes where they can find like you said, that huge variety of episodes from different methods of addiction recovery to how the loved ones are responding. And so, Ms. Bootle, I want to thank you for your time today for guesting on this show. And I hope that people can check that out and again attend those support groups just to not go to another AA, right? Do 12 steps, but to have a group of like-minded individuals to talk and build community. And so I appreciate what you do and thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed seeing you again and having a good chat, like we always do, I guess. So thank you, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day, and I hope things with what you're doing keep going well for you. And I'm so jealous of his website. You guys gotta check his website out.
Thank you. Yeah, check out my website, but immediately go check out Ms. Budos as well because she made it by hand and it's made with love and care. So yeah, we'll have that in the description below, and make sure you listen to her show as well. And Ms. Budo, thank you again.
Thank you. Have a good day.